just so those who aren't able, oh, there you go. Those who aren't able to make it today, we'll send out a link later so they can watch the meet and greet at a later time. But great. Yeah, so I'll give a short overview of how this call will go. So I'll first introduce myself, and then we'll have Nadia introduce herself. And then if you guys, right now we've got 2 STEM professionals. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to share, we've got another one coming. Awesome. If you guys would be willing to share a little bit about yourself, maybe where you're calling in from, and what you do for your job. I would love to hear that. Nadia probably would enjoy hearing that too. If you're willing, if not, no problem. And then after that, I've pre-prepared some questions for Nadia during sort of like a interview style portion of the call. But if you guys have questions too, please feel free to come off mute and ask any questions you have, or you can jot questions in the chat if you prefer that way. So great. Awesome. So I'll start with a brief intro of myself. So my name is Janelle. You guys have received at least one email from me already. And I'm one of the program managers for LPS, and my main job is to make sure that Nadia and our LPS teachers have what they need to facilitate the LPS program in their classrooms. So that involves a lot of coordination with our LPS teachers, and then with our with you all, our STEM professional pen pals as well. And so Nadia, can I have you introduce yourself? Just tell us your name, where you're located, and what grade you teach and subject.
Perfect. So I'm Nadia Kchouri. I have been teaching for the past 14 years. The majority of my career has been with 6th grade, math, science, and AVID. This year, I have taken on a new role, or last year as well, as a 7th grade independent studies teacher. So it's at an online academy. But yeah, I enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy the fact that I get to be a part of this program and that you guys are an inspiration to the students. So thank you so much for everything you do. I just want to start off with thanking you guys.
Definitely, thanks. And so Nadia's our one teacher this year. In previous years, when COVID was the first and second year of COVID, we had a lot of our teachers virtually. But Nadia, can you tell us a little bit more about your virtual academy and what it's like when you see your students, how you see your students, things like that?
Perfect. So like Monday through Friday, I see my students 9 in the morning until 10. So we break down math lessons with them. And then, so like I have one group of students that I see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then those students go to another teacher Thursday and Friday. And then I receive the students from my co-teacher on Thursdays and Fridays. So we're like collaborating, we're co-teaching in a sense because I love math and I love science. That's like my forte. And then my coworker, her focus is like language arts and social studies. So it gives us the opportunity to teach what we love. And we kind of set it up that way amongst ourselves. But I do see them, I see a group of students every day, 9 to 10. And then we have like office hours throughout the day. So I kind of have my office hours open. Just if they need any help, email me and I will meet them anytime during the day. But yeah, that's about it. And then everything else is like record keeping, doing attendance and report after it, like all the boring stuff. But it's just, meeting with the kids, that's like the highlight of the day. And I make sure that I tell them that like they're the best part of the day, to be honest. But yeah, and it's a very small group. So last year was crazy, but now students have started to transition back into their classrooms. So now, from having like 60 kids, basically myself, and the enrollment was so fluid. It was like kids would come in and then when they would see it was an independent studies program, they'd leave because it's like they wanted more hands-on. So I've tried to like incorporate like online teaching because it was like last year was like just do the work, guys, but I don't know how to do it. And they're all at different parts in the curriculum. And I'm like, I can't teach a lesson to a class if they're all in different places. So I've kind of found a way to be creative and use what we have and incorporate like teaching. So it's really nice. It's much better than last year.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I can imagine that it's pretty challenging. So in addition to like different levels of people coming in. Do you have like a geographical range of where students live that can sign up for your academy?
So basically, the idea is that if they're within the district, they could attend here. So like they have their sites of residence. And so, it's within the district. So if they have like health issues or whatever, if they just want to go to an online school, they have that option for them. But I've noticed that once they enroll, sometimes they don't always stay within Moreno Valley. So there are different situations where students are traveling with family members and going to like Mexico. I have a couple of kids that log in from Mexico. I have a student who's going to be moving to Turkey and moving along with his family to Saudi Arabia and is going to end up in Israel. So it's like there's a lot of movement. Last year I had a student that was in Georgia for a little bit, and then she was moving around with her mom because the mom was trying to make ends meet. And so her job required her to move throughout the nation, and the daughter went with her. So different things like that. Most of my kids, though, they're here in Moreno Valley.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And I did want to share with you all, and since it's in the front of my brain now, I want to share it before I forget. So Nadia is going to do 3 letter rounds this year. So typically LPS has 4 letter rounds, but since Nadia is doing the virtual academy, it's a little bit different. And she's committed to still doing a snail mail program, which thank you so much, Nadia. It's added work and extra work for Nadia, but I think that you've seen like the really special like opportunities that students rip open their snail mail letters. So thank you so much for facilitating this, considering, you know, your situation with teaching and you don't actually physically see your students. So because we're doing that, we need to budget a few more weeks between letter rounds so that Nadia can do pickups and drop-offs with her students. And so that's why we're only going to be able to fit in 3 rounds this year. But I'll send another email to you all clarifying like those details, but just wanted to let you all know. Cool, thanks. And then what inspired you to become a teacher, or what do you love most that keeps you coming back year after year? I guess you kind of mentioned this talking about the best part of your day.
It's definitely the kids. So for me, I kind of grew up with humble beginnings, but my dad is educated and he went to college and he's an aerospace engineer. So there's that, but he was like getting like laid off. And so it was like we went from having everything and then having nothing. And my dad is both of them. So both my mom and my dad like worked hard to make ends meet. They did things like selling clothes at the swap meet. So it's like I have like that I guess I have that hustle, you know, like just to kind of make things happen and never give up. And so my mom, when we would have those really hard times and we would end up at the back of the stores, you know, where people would throw away the food and be like, do you want to live like this? Do you want to live like this? And you better get your butt in school. So it was that motivation. And she was like, and then when my parents split up, it was like, look, your dad is educated and he always had that to fall back on. And even though we struggled, there was always a way out for him. And my mom did not graduate high school. So it was like, she struggled so much. She would tell me all the time, like, do you want to live like this? Like, I'd be like, well, no. And these were like times where it was like, school was a challenge because there were like all of these other issues that we were like dealing with at home. And it was hard sometimes to like just focus on academics, right? But it would be like, that was always behind me, like, hey, you know, I have to break this. If I want to get ahead, I'm gonna have to work hard. School is the way out. It's the way out. And it's the only way I could get ahead because look, my mom, she struggled and I don't want to struggle like that. And I want my kids to have medical insurance. And I was like in middle school, like thinking about these things, like I want my kids like to have braces and like not even think twice about having to get them what they need, you know? So it was all of that. And I thought I'm a really patient person and I love teaching. And I love like just helping people out, and just like I got out, like I feel like I'm not rich for sure, but I don't have to, if I want to go to the grocery store, I don't have to like use a coupon, and I don't have to like just get things that are on sale, or I'm not in the back of a store getting food that's been thrown out. I could just say, okay, we could afford food and we're gonna get this. And so I just want my students to have a way out. And sometimes, they may feel like they're going through a lot of the similar things that I went through. Everyone's experiences are different. So their experiences are unique from my own, but there are some similarities, like, oh, we one of my kids was homeless, and I've never been homeless, but it's like the fact that she doesn't have, food sometimes. And I'm like, what do you need? And I directed mom to like all of these resources. I was calling the district and trying to get like things going for her. Like, hey, there's like rent vouchers and this and that. And so like just give the parents what they need so that way the kids have it easier. Or like, hey, by the way, we have lunch here. Like, just come to the school and get a lunch. Like, so it's that stuff. Because I've experienced it myself, like I just want to make sure that the kids don't have to go through that. And education's a way out.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really, it's really special that your students have you for, you have a personal experience that gives you motivation for your job, and then just what shaped you and molded you as a person to be such an exceptional teacher to them. Thank you so much for sharing that. Awesome. And a final question that I have for you as part of your intro is, what are your goals for your students this school year?
I want them to be more engaged. I want them to have as many resources as possible. So like I'm during distance learning, when we first went on distance learning, I did like little cooking sessions with the kids because everybody was at home. So it was like I was incorporating like science and math with cooking and fractions and all of this stuff. And I'm doing that again this year. So I asked my principal, and she was like, oh, you can't work from home anymore, but she's willing to make that exception. So I'm gonna, for the kids that don't have it, I'm gonna get little jars and put the pancake, like the flour, the baking soda, all that stuff in a jar, and like label it all pretty. And then they could just come and pick it up at the school. I know that they're doing like virtual learning, and it's not the same as being in person. And so they're missing those social opportunities to kind of connect with people. And so I'm gonna make pancakes with them just to kind of build that environment with the kids. I do want to incorporate art classes. So I've contacted the Riverside Art Museum. They do like art to go lessons, and I've approved it with my principal for the kids to come in and kind of like socially distance and participate in art to kind of build the camaraderie that they're missing out on. And then of course, LPS, they get being at home, they're not connected as often to people. So you guys are that connection outside of their own communities. So just engaging them in ways that they're missing out on by being virtual instead of in person.
Wow, your students are so lucky to have you going above and beyond in all these different activities and everything. Thank you for sharing that. I'm excited for them. Cool. So thanks. And then you all are STEM professionals who are here. Thank you so much again for joining us. Since we do have a pretty small group, we've got 4 on. If you're willing, we'd love to hear from you. And if it's okay with you, if it's not, I want to put it on the grid view so we can see you guys. But if you don't want to, since it's being recorded, please feel free to turn off your camera. But I mean, not grid, gallery. So I'm gonna change it to the gallery view. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us where you're calling in from, and then how long you've been with LPS, and a little bit about your work in STEM.
So I guess I'll go first. So my name is Melanie Carr, and I am calling in from Davis, California, which is kind of in between Sacramento and San Francisco in Northern California, if you're not familiar. This is my first year at LPS. And I heard about it from a friend of mine who's, a professor, professor, teaches at junior college. And I thought it was really awesome. So I am doing it. Let's see. So my STEM stuff is I started out as an electrical engineer, but now I do more, I'm licensed as a civil engineer, but I do work with like my goal, or like what my specialty or what my interest is using natural systems to treat like water and wastewater. Just so using the environment to purify stuff that we can use. Definitely looking forward to, reusing things and recycling things and stuff like that. So basically anything having to do with water, I've had my, I've been doing for, 20 years or so. I recently got a grant with my friend, and she owns a diaper business. And so we're working on implementing compostable diapers and composting them. And then so to remove like 3% of that stuff from the landfill, and then being able to get like a soil amendment product that we can then give back to people or sell back to them. So that's kind of what I've been up to.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh, I can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Christine. I use she, her pronouns. I'm located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, so weather is interesting. It's like 40 degrees outside right now and very cold, and I'm a little sad, but it's okay. I'm currently a PhD candidate in chemical engineering at the University of Minnesota. My background is also in chemical engineering, so I have bachelor's degree in chemical engineering and master's in material science, both from Drexel University in Philadelphia. So now my research is kind of a mix of both of them. I work on the optical properties of nanocrystals. So like studying how we can use like really, really tiny particles in things like solar windows, making sure that we can design these materials in such a way that they will be really efficient, but also like safe for the environment, can last a long time, or actually like useful. So the end application is that we'll like coat a window with these nanocrystals. And the cool thing about them is that they glow. So if you have sunlight on them, they will glow a different color, and you can use that different light to power solar cells if you attach it on the side of a window. So you can have like a functioning window that you can still see through, but also have solar cells, because you like can't see through a solar cell. If you were to like put a solar cell on the window, you can't use it as a window anymore. So my project combines those two. This is my first year with LPS, so I'm excited and very nervous, but more excited than not.
Awesome. Thank you.
I can go next. Sorry, my camera's not working even if I try to turn it on. My computer's very old. So my name is Priscilla Holguin Luna. I'm calling in from Las Cruces, New Mexico. I'm actually from California, though. I grew up in Pomona, which is not too far from Moreno Valley, so I was very happy when I saw somewhere that I was familiar with for where our students are going to be. This is my first year with LPS. And I'm very excited, also a little bit nervous. I'm a graduate student in the PhD program here at New Mexico State University. I'm an astrophysicist, so my background is in physics. You might be able to tell from my picture. And I study these objects called galaxy clusters. They are the largest objects in the universe. So I'm interested in how they formed, how they evolve over time, and I specifically I'm looking at the gas within these galaxy clusters to try to understand the physical processes that and mechanisms that change it over time, stuff like that. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Hi, I'm Ishan. I'm calling in from Pune, India. So as you can probably see, it's night outside over here, time zones and all. But yeah, so I'm currently an undergraduate student. I have a dual major in physics and mechanical engineering. And the work that I'm doing currently is for my undergraduate thesis, where we're basically working on trying to understand like whether structure of a glass or a glassy solid can predict how it fails. So again, like I'm only going to be working on this for like a short period of time, but like the professor that I'm working under aims to hopefully design better classes using this knowledge in the future. So yeah.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much for calling it. Do you mind my asking what time is it there?
I'll actually need to check that 1 second. It's 11:30. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, thank you all so much for joining us who's in the United States. I'm really excited for Nadia as pre-scientist to learn more about your work. It all sounds really fun.
I'm just like so mind blown by like everything that you guys do. So like just you guys are doing so many cool things, and I can't wait for the students to reach out to you and find out more from you guys. So I just thank you so much. And then Priscilla, just so you know, I used to work in Pomona as a substitute teacher, so very familiar with the area. I loved it there.
Me too.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing where you're at and what you do. I'm going to put this back on speaker view so you can see Nadia. Awesome. So yeah, I do have some questions for Nadia, but if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. So I first wanted to ask, well, maybe I'll start with a different question since you just mentioned you're so excited for your students to chat with the STEM professionals. Can I ask you, Nadia, what advice do you hope that your pre-scientists get from their STEM pen pals in their letters?
So what my pre-scientists, what I want them to get from the communication.
Yeah, like what types of things do you want the STEM pen pals to share in their letters? I don't like anything particular.
I just want just to share like their experiences of education, maybe like if there's like any situations where they've struggled, because in middle school in particular, and it's normal for every student across the board, they're dealing with confidence and things like that. Sometimes they don't always want to share their cameras and things like that. So and then like when I meet with the students one-to-one and I meet with the parents will tell me, oh, my kid, you know, doesn't think that they're smart enough. And I'm like, oh no, no. And I'm like, really, I want you to repeat after me. I'm smart. She's like, I'm smart. And I'm just like, oh, it's heartbreaking sometimes, but it's like they don't have the belief in themselves, and sometimes lacking that belief in themselves, it's going to limit them if that's what they're just focusing on. And I'm like, no, like, sure, everyone goes through that where you just kind of put yourself down and maybe you're your worst advocate, but in many ways, like you could also be your best advocate. And so maybe if you are struggling right now, you could even say, I'm having a hard time and I don't get it yet, but you will. And so keep on asking those questions and keep on coming to me if you need help. So those are the things that they're dealing with. And so if they are able to relate with you all, knowing that you too maybe have had struggles and just different ways that you have personally overcome them, then I think it would be helpful for them. So I think it's important to kind of put yourself in the shoes of a middle schooler and just remember what it was like and just say, like, you know, they're kind of, it's a different time. They're transitioning from like elementary to high school. And it's like, you know, the peer pressure where like a pimple is like the worst thing in the world. It's like, oh my God, everyone can see it. Like, no, you're fine. You're fine. Like, it's all a part of being human, and they haven't figured that out yet. So the hormones are crazy right now, and they're very self-conscious right now. And yeah, just be you, but also let them know that they're not alone.
Awesome. Thank you. That was extremely helpful and an awesome answer. Thank you. Great. And so I did want to go back. So you did tell us that so you're at a virtual academy, and anybody who's located in your district can sign up and enroll in your academy. But then you also told us that some people are more transient and maybe they're signing in from a different country, things like that. But generally, can you tell us a little bit more about the community? So like the district where your students are?
So some details, and I'm gonna try to be as nice as I possibly can, but honest at the same time. Moreno Valley, it's been nicknamed like Murder Valley, and it's because the crime rate is kind of not the best. Just like low demographic, like the history behind Moreno Valley, a lot of people that were living in Compton, they were kind of motivated to move out here for like better opportunities. And so it's like a newer type of community where the houses look really nice, but it's affordable. And so the people from like Compton like moved out here in hopes of having a better future. And so a lot of times they brought that same kind of mentality with them. So it's kind of like when I first moved out in this area, I was like, whoa, these houses are beautiful. Like, I can afford this. This is great. And then when I was talking to my coworkers, they're like, no. You don't want to move here. And I'm like, why not? This is great. And they're like, the crime rate's really bad. You want to go to the cities that are neighboring Moreno Valley, but don't live in Moreno Valley. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. But I ended up taking their advice. But yeah, the crime rate is bad. It's like low socioeconomic environment. And it does have its challenges with that stuff. So a lot of, I don't know, there's sometimes, well, I'll just put it like that. The crime rate is high.
Thanks for sharing. And another question I have for you that's more geared towards our in-person teachers is, what is your classroom setup like? But I'd like to ask you differently, like how do so you said that you see your students so like on a video chat for an hour a day, well, with each group for certain days of the week. Do you mind telling us like what it's like when they join the video call? So like they join the virtual classroom, and like, do you have a specific routine or things like specific things that you point out every day or something like that?
Sure. So basically, I'll just tell you what we're currently doing. So we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month this month from September 15th until October 15th. So like every day I do, like I showcase a Spanish speaking country. And then I'm like, vamos a ir a Argentina. And it's like, so I'm like, let's go to Argentina or whatever, you know, it could be Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, whatever Latin country we're covering for that day. And then I'll cover a STEM professional. I'm like Luis Alvarez, and then I'll break that down of what he did for a living. And like, he was from Spain. And so that's like the first part of the day. And then I go over like housekeeping, like all of the events that are coming up at the school. And then after that, so it takes about 15 minutes. And then I start, all right, get your math books out. So we get the workbooks because I requested that the kids have physical copies in addition to the independent studies program, because I think that math is so hands-on and they need that. So I'm like, get your math books out. And so we'll do our lesson. And then we end up the next day playing like a Kahoot game. So that way I could assess if kids get it. So like today, I told the kids, I'm like, it's only going to be as fun as you make it. So ready? Are you ready to rumble? And I was just doing all this stuff. And then they were laughing. And I was like, yeah, like me and my sister, we used to like dress up like wrestlers, and like I was the ultimate warrior, whatever. But it was like, we're going to basically get wrestling and bring it into this session. So I was like, you know, pounding on the desk, and the kids are like, ah, just to get them hyped. And they're like, oh, that's it, I'm gonna beat you. And I was like, yeah, come on, let's go. So it was so fun. But it's like, I'm trying to make it as fun as I can with this kind of setting. And I'm like doing like fist bumps with them and things like that. But it's like, you know, generally that's what it is. It's like Hispanic Heritage Month. It is the announcements. It's the math lesson. It's assessing the students to make sure that they understand it. Because if they understand it, I can move on. And if not, it's like 50% of the class isn't getting it, then I'm like, I got to do something different and reteach it. So that's a typical day. For science, I've kind of focused on LPS, that's what I'm incorporating, because they have to get their work done. Like their independent studies, they're like percentages, and they calculate the attendance based on the work they get done with the independent studies program. So I'm trying not to give them too much, because then it takes away from the work that they're getting credit for. So yeah, that's a typical day.
Awesome. Wow, it really sounds like you're trying to make your class as engaging as possible in a virtual setting. That's really fun. Cool, thanks. Do you know, so this might be a challenging question to answer since like your students are coming from all over, but can you give us a general idea of the prior exposure to math? I mean, well, to math and science, because you're both math and science, your students have before coming into your class?
For math, they're struggling bad, because many of the students have done independent studies, and I'm not saying it's entirely not a good idea, but I'm just saying, like, in person, it's way more hands-on. So I'm seeing that when it comes to like isolating the variable and solving for a specific value for like X or whatever it might be, the ideas behind it, it's like inverse operations and dividing by the coefficient to make sure that you have one as a value, and one using the identity property of multiplication, anything times one is itself. And I'll literally tell them 5 times 1, 5, 6 times 1, 6, X times 1, 1. And I'm like, no. So it's like, come on, guys. So they're really, they're struggling with math. With science, they haven't really had a whole lot of science at the elementary school level. And so here, like K through 12, the emphasis has always been math and language arts. And so a lot of the like social studies and sciences, they get kind of left out because there's so much pressure for teachers to focus on these subjects because they get tested on them. So yeah, I mean, I remember when I was in person, the kids were like, this is the first time I'm teaching 6th grade. This is the first time I've actually had science. And I'm like, really? You've had no science experience? No, well, I guess like I've had one lesson and we were talking about like how plants grow and this and that, like plant cells. And I'm like, you've had one lesson? They're like, yeah. So kindergarten through 5th, one lesson in science. To be fair, maybe they don't remember everything that was taught either, you know. They could have been exposed more than that, but it's very, their science is more limited than math.
And do you feel like that's been exacerbated with like, you know, the pandemic and how the pandemic has come with learning loss? So then math and English are being prioritized over like science.
Absolutely. So it's just been worse. And so with math, prior to the pandemic, I did see that there were gaps. There's always going to be gaps with learning. And as teachers, we try to bridge them, but they're worse now than they were before, to be fair.
And so so in the letters, what would you suggest STEM professionals do to communicate, maybe if they have a complex concepts or ideas in their letters, if they want to share those with your students? How would you suggest they go about doing that in their letters?
Break everything down. Just make the letters like kid friendly. So like for me, when I am teaching math, I first use something that's familiar with them. So it's like, okay, well, we gotta like, how would we get this? How would we isolate the variable? In other words, and then I do this. I'm like, how would we get X by itself? So it's like I break that down. Isolate, because maybe they're not familiar with that word isolate. So it's like, how do we isolate the variable? In other words, how do we get the variable by itself? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and divide by the number in front of the variable. We're gonna divide by the coefficient, so that eventually they start getting less dependent on the like, you know, common words that they use to communicate, and then they go more toward the academic language. So it's kind of like, I'm going to say this like Dora, when like the explorer, when she's explaining, like when she's talking in Spanish, like, voy a ir a la playa, I'm going to the beach. It's like, that way they know, like just use both, because I want them to become familiar with those scientific terms, but I want it broken down.
Awesome, great. And then in addition to like breaking things down to like a readable or understandable level for a middle school student, what other things that could they use to, could the STEM professionals use to try to help understand concepts, ideas, diagrams, things like that?
Sorry, I got something in my eye.
Oh no.
Oh, go ahead. All right, so I'm sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, so in addition to breaking things down, is there anything else that the STEM professionals could do to try to help understand concepts and ideas and stuff?
Yeah, like for sure, like you had mentioned, diagrams, things like that. Make the letters kind of colorful for the kids, maybe. Just make it fun for them because they are in middle school. So I know the kids like to show off, like before when I was in person and they have those letters. They're like, oh, let me look, my scientists like wrote me. And so they'll have that, or sometimes scientists in the past use like stationery with like different backgrounds and things like that. And they get all excited about that. So maybe pictures or diagrams, or yeah, just make it fun. Get creative, guys.
Awesome, thanks. And you may have answered this question already, but I'll ask it in case you want to add anything. Like you mentioned, some of the things your students are going through in different situations. But what are some of the most important things you want the STEM professionals to know about being matched with your students?
Most important thing that I want the STEM professionals to know about being matched with the students. Just, I guess like the most important thing would be just them communicating with them is really big for them. It's just, you know, opening up that opportunity for them. And like I told them, this is their opportunity of reaching out to them to find out more about their dream jobs. So because based on the survey, they're connected to you guys based on their personal interest. And so I told the kids, like, this is your chance to find out about like more about your dream job. Ask them anything you want about how they got there, whatever it might be. So I think that's the most important, that maybe they of the perfect, just to kind of break it down for them. I think that's really important. And yeah, just give them some insight about what you do, because you guys are totally inspiring our youth.
Awesome, thank you. Great, we do have about 5 minutes left. If you guys have any questions, please either come off mute and ask, or you can jot them in the chat. I do have a final question for you, Nadia, before we end, but I wanted to leave a moment to see if you guys have any questions. And then also, Nadia, if there's anything additional that you wanted to share that we maybe didn't get to, wanted to leave a moment if anything is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, my question is, because they're doing kind of more independent studies, do you see that there's maybe a different type of student or type of personality that engages in that class, or, you know, because it's independent? Like, are they more independent thinking or kind of self-starters or stuff like that? You know, what is that personality, you know, common in your students?
No,
Okay.
they're supposed to have that, honestly.
Okay.
But it's like they're needing a lot more motivation. I'm like having to call all the parents all of the time, and they're probably so tired of hearing my phone call. They're like, yes, hi, good afternoon. This is Mrs. Kchouri. I just wanted to like touch base with you because so-and-so is not doing the work that's expected of them. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, I'll go ahead and talk to him. So I'm like, okay, so if you need anything, let me know. Just send me an email. I can meet with him, you know, if he needs to. I'm just hoping to motivate him, whatever it might be. And then they're like, okay, thank you. So it's not, the distance is not the easiest thing. I would hope honestly, there are some students who are self-motivated, where it's like they are exactly where they need to be. But there are, the majority, I want to say, are students that would benefit most by being in person, but they're at this school because of health issues or you know, and sometimes it's even behavioral issues where it's like they've gotten in trouble so much at their school sites that, and then their attendance is super bad at their school sites that the parents are like, I don't want to send them to school because I have my kid missing all of the time. I'm going to have them go with, you know, the independent study program. So it's like, and then they don't even log in the morning. And I'm like, ugh. So it's like, those are the challenges that I'm dealing with.
I just have a follow-up or whatever. So I have a disability, like with my back, it's not super great. And so is that something that would, you know, your students do any that, you know, like have disability or something, or bringing that up? Or is that some, you know, obviously that can be a challenge, but is that something that you think might be valuable to discuss or not?
No, absolutely, because it has a situation where it's like you have to overcome that in some way, or you have to like live with it. And yeah, I think that would be really important to share with the student for sure. So yeah, like I have a student that does have a health issues that limits her from participating in PE. Like she's the sweetest kid, and she's very bright. But aside from that, she does have her limitations physically. So if I'm not sure if I don't think you're matched with her per se, but yeah, like if somebody who had that that physical limitation, if they shared that with her, she would totally get that. And I think other students would also understand that and be empathetic.
Awesome, thanks. I do want to add that so we do want you to share as things naturally come up, as it's authentic, but we also do have a round called Overcoming Obstacles, and it's specific for sharing something that you've overcome in your professional career. But please, if you want to share that earlier in a different letter, please feel free. But we do have a letter where that sounds like that would be a perfect fit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the third one, the third round. Yeah.
Okay.
But great, thanks. So I have a final question for you, Nadia, before we sign off. Can you either share a special moment or your favorite part about LPS from an experience in the past?
The first thing that came to mind when you asked that question was letter opening day in the classroom. I have a video. Do you guys want to see? Yeah?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. So can I share it my screen? Is that okay? Because I know you're recording.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let me see. Can you share? Do you have ability? Can you try to
I
share?
do.
See?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
just,
sure,
yeah,
please.
it's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me go to my site. So this was so exciting for me to see them open their letters, but I have it on my website. Let's see. So if I go here, and I even posted it, guys. Okay, let me know if you guys could hear the video. I should do something different. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Preview maybe. All right, here we go.
Okay, it's letter opening day, guys. Woohoo! All right. Open your letters. Isn't that cool? That's so cool.
basically, let me see, let me go back. I should know how to like not share, but I think I'm like so excited. So, but yeah, like you could see what it's like and you guys inspire them, and kids that didn't like, I couldn't get them to want to read in class. Here they were with their letters, just like so into it. So yeah, just to show you guys that you make the world of difference, and that sometimes you guys are that spark that leads them to want to just do better. And if they don't have all the knowledge, they are motivated through you guys to learn as much as they can to get to where you're at.
Yeah, and thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. That was so special. And piggybacking off of you, thank you all STEM professionals so much in advance for sparking this curiosity, like Nadia said, and for the time that you're going to spend writing letters to her students. We really appreciate it. And of course, thank you so much for setting aside some time to chat with Nadia during this meet and greet. And then I did want to shout out you, of course, Nadia. Thank you so much, especially considering you have a unique situation with your teaching environment. So thank you so much for continuing to be a part of LPS and bringing this opportunity to your students. And of course, for your time setting aside to do this meet and greet today too.
Thank you to you for everything that you do for all of us. Facilitating, I can't even imagine how challenging it is, but thank you also to the STEM professionals. You guys are awesome, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your days to meet.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a great weekend.
For sure.
Bye.
All right, guys, take care.
Bye.
Thank you.